歡迎各位觀眾收睇周一長談，我係你哋呢一集嘅節目主持人梁英年。而家已經去到咧6月嘅時候啦，大家知唔知道咧？BC 省10月會有一個嘅省選啊。咁啊省選嚟緊咧，本來慣可選舉啫，但係今次咧有一個政黨咧突然間冒起咧，就好多人想認識佢呢個政黨嘅，就係咧 Conservative Party of BC 或者叫 BC Conservative， 就係 BC 省嘅保守黨。原本呢個黨咧喺2年前咧就冇乜人認識嘅，但係突然間喺民意調查嗰度咧一路嘅上升，上升到咧同而家嘅執政嘅新民主黨咧都差唔多去同一水平。反而咧另外一個喺省議會裏邊嘅官式反對黨咧係 BC 聯合黨咧。跌到好似同綠黨咁嘅水平，究竟發生咩事咧？所以今日請嚟咧就係 BC 省嘅保守黨嘅黨領 John Rustad， 中文名咧我哋叫做羅士德，同大家咧係去講下究竟 BC 保守黨係代表啲乜嘢。Welcome to the program, Mr. Rustad.
Thank you for having me.
Just explain to our audience the BC Conservative or the Conservative Party of BC. 2 years ago, before you joined, not many people know about this party, but suddenly the popularity of Conservative Party of BC rise up. It's about the same level as the ruling NDP who's been there for a long, long time. Now, tell us who you are, first of all. Who is John Rustad? You are an MLA, but where are you from? Not many people in the Low Mainland know about this name.
So let me start maybe by just saying the Conservative Party of British Columbia is actually the oldest party in British Columbia's history. It was first founded in 1903, and it governed for many years. But the last time it formed a government was 1927. And the last time it elected anybody was in the 1970s. So it's been a party that has been in the wilderness for a very long period of time. So myself, I was born and raised in Prince George. I currently live just west of Prince George on a little lake out in the middle of nowhere. It's very peaceful. It's very beautiful.
BC is a big province.
But if you look at British Columbia, it's actually almost the exact geographic center of the province is where I live.
So you were born in the center of British Columbia.
Yes. So you might say in the heart of British Columbia. And I worked, of course, around the province. I had lots of opportunity to live elsewhere, but I love living in that area because it's so peaceful, it's so connected, of course, with what really British Columbia is. Back in the year 2000, I was running my own company, and I was very upset with where things were going in British Columbia. That was under the NDP government back then. And I actually sat down with my wife and said, what do you think about taking the company and moving to Alberta? It would be 15% profit right on the bottom line because the taxes were lower, the environment was better. Ultimately, we made a decision to stay, and that left me with a choice. Do I either live with it, or do I get involved and try to change it? Politics was never an ambition of mine, but I decided, no, I'm not going to live with it, so I'm going to try to change it.
So you are not a career politician. You are a businessman. You work in different areas. And
yes.
You try to do something to change the situation to make business more survivable in British Columbia.
Right. I just looked
Instead
at
of moving out.
Exactly. I just looked at it and I thought, this is crazy. British Columbia is the best province in Canada. And Canada is one of the best provinces, one of the best countries in the world.
Right.
We have all the potential we could ever want. British Columbia is like the jewel of the crown in everything it has. I mean, it's a beautiful location. It has all the resources we could ever want. It's got a well-trained, well-educated population. There's so much going for us, but it's hopelessly managed. And that's what ultimately I decided was, okay, we've got to change this. If things are going that bad, if we're not fulfilling our potential, if we're not able to provide, for the average everyday person to be able to raise their family and have hopes for their kids, then what are we doing? This is wrong. We need to change this. So that's what got me into politics in the first place. So I was first elected as a school trustee for 3 years. Then I became an MLA in 2005. I've served in a couple of cabinet positions, a Minister for Aboriginal Relations and Reconciliation, where I signed about 435 agreements with First Nations. And I was also, for a very short period of time, the Minister of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. So since then, in 2022, I was kicked out of my party that I had been part of for over 18 years. Actually close to 20 years in terms of in total being part of it. And so that left me back with the same choice I had that got me into politics, which is I'm really unhappy with where things are going. I didn't see an opportunity for that change to happen within the party that I was part of. So do I just live with it, or do I try to change it? And once again, I'm not the kind of person that just lives with it, so I thought, okay, I've got the energy, I've got the time, I've got the skills to go forward and try to change it. So I joined the Conservative Party of British Columbia in February of 2023. The leader stepped down and made some room for me to take on the leadership at the end of March of 2023. And we have been building this party as a grassroots movement. We've gone from about 3% in the polls to 39% in the polls in the last year.
Now, you are not a career politician. You have a business, but you left your business and become a politician. But you were so frustrated with what's happening in BC, you tried to do something, but you were kicked out of the party. Now, there is some criticism that you have some problem with the climate change portfolio. That's why you were kicked out of the BC United. Kelly, what do you think about the climate change? Is it real? Is it false?
So climate change is real. There's no question our climate is changing. But we have a premier today that believes that taxing people into poverty can change the weather. And that's absolutely ludicrous.
Same as our Prime Minister.
Taxing people into poverty cannot change the weather, right? And so we look at this and think this is wrong. Our focus in this is wrong. We need to get rid of things like the carbon tax. All it is doing is punishing people. By 2030, the average family of 4 in British Columbia will have paid about $27,000 in carbon tax. How is that affordable for people? It's crazy. So this is a change that needs to be made. So instead of this focus there's nothing we can do to sort of change things, instead of that focus on taxation and big government spend and policies, what we need to do is we actually need to be able to adapt to the changing climate. And one of the things I'm very concerned about is, for example, is agriculture. As a province, we only procure 34% of the food that we consume from British Columbia. That means 2/3 of our food comes from outside of British Columbia, primarily south of the border. How is it that, if there's a changing climate or if there's changing policies that puts that food production at risk, how is it that we don't have a government that says, we want to make sure we look after the people? So as British Columbia, as part of adapting, we actually need to double our food production. We need to drive down the cost of that food production, and we need to make sure that's available locally so people can actually buy it directly from the farmers and cut out the middlemen in terms of the process. That's something that we should be focused on as a government. That's something that we will be focused on.
Right, and then cut out all those transportation greenhouse gas emission, shipping something from south of the border and from other parts of the world into BC.
Exactly, and it's the right thing to do. It strengthens our province, it strengthens our local economy, and most people would agree they would love to have their food locally grown and locally secure as opposed to getting it from somewhere else. So that's a big focus that we need to be, but that's what we mean by about adapting to our changing climate. Making sure that we look after the people of British Columbia and that we make sure we meet their needs and they have the quality of life that people would like for themselves, but more importantly for their families, for their children and their grandchildren.
Now, and then the other thing is you just mentioned you started your political life as a school trustee.
Yes.
Now, talking about school, a lot of people immigrate to Canada, particularly in the Chinese communities, because of the education and because of the second generation. They think we can get a better education in Canada. But now in school, it looks like there's a lot of brainwashing, according to a lot of parents. They are not very satisfied with our school system, the curriculum, particularly the Soji issue. Are you familiar with Soji, and can you explain to us what do you think about the Soji? Should it continue this kind of education?
So what we've seen with the education system in BC is a continual decline under the NDP of just the basics, reading, writing, arithmetic. Those numbers have been going down compared to other places in the world. And they've been going down because we've been so focused on other types of things. And there's material now that is being made available in schools, which quite frankly, I find just offensive. I mean, you've got material in there where it depicts children having oral sex with other children. And I look at that and I think, why is that in our schools,
and
in our libraries?
In elementary education?
Yes, that's in our libraries. Kids as young as 11 and even younger can have access to that in school libraries. How could we be doing this? We've got situations where the language that's being taught in there, I can't even repeat here. You wouldn't be able to put it on the air.
You can't even say it in the legislature.
We use that language in the legislature. Yeah, and we were called out saying that's unparliamentary, yet somehow that's okay for kids. So what are we doing with children? Our education system needs to be focused on teaching kids how to think. Teaching kids how to think critically, how to be able to build and prosper in the future, not teaching kids what to think. And so there's big changes we need to our education system to make sure it's meeting those needs, families, so that they can have that better future they want for their children.
Now, but because you are championing an opposite to what the NDP is trying to put into our school system, to our environmental issue, some people criticize the BC Conservative or John Rustad, you are extremists. You are not in the mainstream. You shouldn't be running at all. How do you react to those kind of accusations?
Well, I'd have to admit, the NDP they can't defend their policies. They can't defend what they're doing in the schools. They can't defend what they're doing with many other issues. And so all they can do is turn to accusations. But I look at it this way. Parents should have the right to know what their children are learning. Parents should have the right to be able to say whether their child should be involved in learning in that. And the government doesn't believe that. They believe that parents shouldn't have that right.
Should not be involved in it.
They shouldn't even be told what's going on. Yeah. And that's just wrong. We've seen examples of what happens when government thinks it knows best how to raise your children. And it's never ended well anywhere in the world. So why would it be different this time? So these sort of things have to come to an end. But I don't believe it is right for a government to hide things from parents. I don't believe it's a right for a government to actively promote sexualization of children in our schools. When you have a 6-year-old boy coming home, 6 years old, coming home and saying, Grandpa, is it okay that I'm a boy? If this is coming out of our education system, let kids be kids. But most importantly, make sure our education system is teaching kids how to think critically about how to think, not indoctrinating them into what to think.
Yeah, just think about that. If a boy, someday he come back from school and ask parents and grandparents, the school say, I may not be a boy. Mom, who am I? Am I a boy, a girl? Between a boy and a girl? That is what our school system is telling them.
At 6-year-old, kids are too young to think that. But we want to make sure, of course, our education system has a good, strong anti-bullying program in place and support in place for kids as they find their way through whoever they will become to be. But let's not be indoctrinating kids into something. Let's let them explore and find that out on their own and make sure that our school is teaching kids how to think. I mean, we have a very challenging society today. For example, in our school today, we don't teach basic fiscal management.
Now, you already explained, if you compare the international standard, we are going lower and lower and lower.
Yeah, exactly. And so we've got to stop this focus on all these social things that this government wants to be doing in our schools, and we actually have to start being critical about what we're doing in education and making sure that our children have the best opportunities for building their future. And as you said, many people come to this country because they want the best future they can for their children. Right. And if our education system is letting them down, that's a tragedy. We should be focused on making sure our education system is meeting those expectations that parents and grandparents have, so that their children and grandchildren can have that good future that they want to see, and they sacrifice to make sure that they can have that.
Now, talking about extremism, people accuse you as extremist, but I think it's the other way. The NDP and their people are extremists. They are telling us the best way to deal with the drug issue is to give them the drug.
Yes, I know, it's crazy.
And all the evidence shows it's not working, but they think it is the way to go. We should give them more drug. And you're against it? Not many people are against it.
Exactly. I mean, we stand up and say, look, this decriminalization and the safe supply, there's no such thing as safe supply. These are hard drugs.
Those are poisons, and give them more.
Doctors are telling me today, with these drugs that are on the street, within 2 to 3 years of people using this, they have permanent brain damage. They will never be able to fully recover and lead a productive life. This is what, and our government is saying, it's okay, we're going to make sure that they have safe places to do drugs, and we're going to make sure we give them drugs so that, they can carry on until one day when they want to quit. No, it's crazy. The worst part is, so you've got a child who might have a nicotine addiction. They're not allowed to have a nicotine patch to fight their nicotine addiction from smoking.
Right.
Yet that same government is saying it's okay to give that child fentanyl. Oh. This is just extremism by this government, and then they claim us as being extremists. Wait a second here. I mean, we have to be focused on making sure that children are kept safe and that they have those. And when you're dealing with somebody that has addictions, let's get them onto a path to recovery. Let's not give them more drugs. In Richmond, they want to do the safe injection site at the hospital. I mean, you could imagine you're in the hospital, you're recovering from addictions. Your doctor's prescribing treatment for you. You're struggling with this. And you look out the window and there's a government-supplied drugs, sitting there doing drugs. I mean, this government, David Eby, actually believes it's okay to be smoking a crack pipe in a hospital. It's okay to be walking down the street smoking a crack pipe. When employees have gone to work safe and said, hey, wait a second, we're being exposed
Right.
to this secondary smoke. WorkSafe's response is, well, then you'll have to wear gas masks.
Are you joking?
No, we've got a housing project, trying to provide housing for the hard to house, for people that are facing some of these challenges. And there are people in there working that they are putting up every day with people smoking fentanyl, people smoking crack, and they actually have rooms set aside for doing that. But of course, they get high and then they just wander around the place smoking. So they went to complain to WorkSafe BC. They were told, you're going to have to wear a gas mask to work there.
That is the situation in our province. It's crazy.
And experts are telling me we have the highest level of addictions per capita in British Columbia of anywhere in North America. Clearly, decriminalization and safe supply have failed miserably. And these guys want to double down and even do more. And so this will come to an end. As a Conservative Party of British Columbia, we will make sure that we bring an end to this nonsense, that we provide, expand out services and provide services to get people into recovery. One of the things that we have said that we'd like to do is, if somebody ODs,
Yes.
and fortunately, emergency services were able to get there and bring them back to life, and save their lives. Instead of just letting them go back out in the street and do more drugs, where later in that day they may very well OD again.
It's go around and round and round again.
We're actually going to put them into mandatory treatment to give them an opportunity to get clean, because clearly they're at risk of harming themselves. And as a society, we should say we should be doing everything we can to help them off of that risk. And they may not be in a position where they can make that decision for themselves, but clearly they're at risk of harming themselves. And I think as a society, we actually need to be fair, and we need to be just, we need to be caring to be able to do these sort of things.
Now, just as a choice. Right now what we're doing is someone OD, you save that person, and then go out by himself or herself, may get OD again, and then this vicious cycle continue. But you're supposing, because they cannot control themselves, once we revive that person, we should put him into a mandatory detox.
Yes.
Because we want to save his
But
life.
more than just detox, there's recovery that's needed. And anybody who has suffered from an addiction will know, or suffered from substance abuse will know,
They
that
cannot control themselves.
it takes time
Yeah.
to be able to get on the path. And even years later,
Right.
you're still suffering,
Yeah.
you're still struggling with it. But you have to be able to not only get them over the immediate addiction issues, the immediate substance abuse issues, but you have to be able to provide them that support so that they can get on that path. And it may not work for everybody, but if you had 20, 30, 50, 80% success rate, wouldn't that be better? To be able to get people to a place where they can then start living productive lives and save their lives so they're not out, facing potentially another overdose. There's some of the health professionals have told me they have seen people 4, 5, 6 times in a day that have OD'd and been brought back to life.
Oh, that is sad story to hear
Now,
that.
it's heroic that
Yeah.
our healthcare workers and our first responders have been able to do that. But what about that person? That person is in desperate need of help. And that is a government that we need to be able to be. We need to be able to be firm. There's things that we need to do, but we also have to be able to be compassionate and do the right thing to be able to help people.
Yeah, which one is more compassionate? Let them continue in their miserable life, or give them a chance for recovery? That's the choice. So we have to make that choice in October. This is up to the voters, the British Columbians, to make that decision. Now, we're talking about the election. We have 93 MLA in the
93
next
ridings,
legislature.
yes, in the next election.
And you only started the movement 2 years ago and get those support.
One year ago.
1 year ago. How are you going to build the infrastructure for this upcoming election with 93 candidates, 93 electoral associations, and get the money to run the campaign? How are you going to do it?
So the good news is we already have 63 people nominated.
Wow,
We've
that's a lot.
already nominated 63 around the province. We've got another 20 or 25 that are in the works. So we're very close to being able to fill up our dance card, making sure that we've got full candidates. And we've got great candidates coming forward. And we just finished talking about the addictions issue. One of the candidates who's running for us is a doctor who spent 25 years specializing in addiction treatment. And so she's decided to put her life on hold and say, yes, we need this change in the province. So she is running for us.
So she's willing to go against the mainstream medical professionals on that?
Exactly. We've got,
wow, she's so
actually,
brave.
we've got another doctor who's a general physician on the island, and a GP on the island, who's also running for us.
Wow.
We've got another doctor in Richmond, or I mean in Surrey, who's running for us. We've got professionals from right across the province, people in local government, people in school trustees, lawyers. We've got a farmer up in the Peace Country who's taken away from his dairy farm and said, you know what, this is crazy what's going on in the province. Somebody needs to step up to the plate, and he's done that. He's stepped up to the plate and wants to run for us. Many people, many business people, from across the whole area. So it's quite a team that we've been able to put together. We're building out the infrastructure around them, doing the fundraising that needs to be put in place. But we will have all 93 candidates running in this next election. We're going to make sure that people in British Columbia have a choice for a common sense government that's just going to fight for the average everyday person.
Now, you come from the center of British Columbia, a remote area to a lot of people living in the lower mainland. They may not know where is Prince George, where is the center of British Columbia, and they only heard about this Conservative Party of BC in the last 1 or 2 years. How are you going to attract candidates from the ethnic communities or new Canadians? How are you going to approach them?
We have more people running for us of ethnic background than any other party has ever had. We have three people three ladies who are black who are running for us. We have 2 people who are Indigenous, 2 ladies who are Indigenous who are running for us. We've got probably a dozen people from the Indo-Canadian community running for us. We've got Persian running for us. We have a Muslim running for us. I mean, we've got a Russian person from Russia running for us. We've got people. We've got a person of Jewish descent running for us. We've got people of Lebanese descent running for us. We've got people all across this province that is a reflection of who we are as the province of British Columbia, and we're very proud of the people that have stepped up to the plate. And we're not looking for that in particular. It's just happening.
It's
happening organically
to this movement.
And I think about close to 40% of our candidates are women.
Wow.
That have stepped up to the plate and wanted to run, and great qualified people that want to be part of changing this province. It's really quite something to see this grassroots movement.
Now, but the other party's leader criticized the Conservative Party of BC and said, you have extremist candidates running for you, so we cannot work with those people. So well, how do you react to this kind of accusation?
What else is he going to say when he's at 12% in the polls? I mean, but you look at what they're doing, and they think it's extremist to support the idea of freedoms in our society.
Yeah, because of the COVID issue, right?
They think it's extremist to say that women and girls should be treated fairly in sports and should not have biological men competing against them. That's a piece of legislation we brought forward. They think that's extremist. And so I take what they say with a grain of salt. It's fine, right? And in terms of, there will be people that will have different perspectives and different ideas. We have 93 candidates. We're going to have 93 candidates around the province. There are 93 different regions around the province. It is not right to expect that they would all be saying the same thing. You're not electing, the people should not be electing a representative to represent the party to them. Mm-hmm. They're electing a representative to fight for their riding, to speak on behalf of their riding, to bring that to the party. And that is what we are looking for, is those people that are going to stand up and fight for their ridings.
So that's real democratic.
That's exactly what democracy
because
should
you represent the people.
And we've got a government in Ottawa, or I mean in Victoria right now, with David Eby and the NDP, who actually are fighting against democracy. They're overruling, local governments. They're coming in and dictating what you can do and what you can't do. They're attacking your private property rights. They're saying that they're going to take away, quite frankly, your rights on the landscape in terms of just even accessing the landscape without permission from other groups. I mean, they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in freedoms. We do.
No, but realistically, in order to kick out this NDP government, you need the support of more people. But now not the NDP supporter group of British Columbian, they are divided. There's BC United, and then there's Conservative Party PC. Can you work together to win this election so we won't have another NDP for the next 5 years?
Well, the interesting piece is we actually have a candidate who is a former NDP MLA, and she's running for us on the island. Right? We've got a lot of people from the NDP that are saying, we're done with this craziness and this hardcore socialism and authoritarianism that they are presenting here in Victoria. And so they're coming over and joining us. We actually have people from the Green Party that have come over and joined us and are campaigning with us. We've got people from across the political spectrum. And that's why I always say, it's not about being conservative or liberal or NDP or Green. It's just to stand for what's right and fight for the average everyday person. And that's why we're bringing such a good coalition together. So we aren't going to risk losing who we are. Just that grassroots movement that is going to be straight up with people in this province. We're not going to risk that by actually looking at something like a merger. Because after 33 years, since 1991, it's been 16 years of BC Liberal and 17 years of NDP. And we have a crisis in just about everything. Mm-hmm. Why would we want to be what they were? People are looking for change. They don't want the past. They want something new. And so we're not going to be looking at things like a merger. However, we are interested in working with anybody who wants to come in and support us and work as part of our group to be able to bring that change and that grassroots movement, that common sense to the people of British Columbia.
But how are you going to achieve that? The BC United, they have the infrastructure, they have the money, they have the candidate, and you have your 93 candidate. How can you work together and find a common ground to defeat the NDP?
So, I mean, first of all, I would dispute that they will have all the candidates. I would also dispute that they'll have the money because they're not in that situation. But my hope is that people across this province are going to be looking for that option to remove this NDP government. It is that what they have done, particularly in the resource sector, I mean, they've just decimated our economy. You realize that by 2030, the projections are right now that if they carry on with their programs, with their approach with Clean BC, British Columbia's gross domestic product, our GDP, will be just 0.4%. The average in BC's history prior to the NDP was 2.5%. Oh. And so when you're talking about an economy that is that low, what you're talking about is a destruction of our quality of life, a destruction of the services that we're providing. And I find that completely unacceptable, and I think the people in this province will too. So we're going to do what we can to work with people from the United Party, with people from the NDP, with people from the Green Party, with people right across the spectrum in this province to fight for the things that are right in this province. But we can never compromise who we are and that grassroots movement that is expecting us to bring about real change in BC.
Now, but some people also said you've been talking about this issue that's right in your heart, that you want to get some result from it. But how about the other issue? If you want to be the governing party of British Columbia, you need to deal with a lot of other issues,
yes, of
like
course.
Transportation, like housing, like economy. You don't have a policy book to tell us what you represent in those issues.
Of course, when you're going into election, you don't put all your cards on the table at the beginning. It's like playing poker, right? You don't put your cards on the table and say, okay, let's bet.
Okay.
Right? So we will be looking and bringing out our policies in due course. And one of the reasons that we haven't brought out more policies today is the NDP are being failing. They've got a scandal in housing. They've got the crisis on the drug issues. They've got another scandal, quite frankly, with MNP, with their contracting and that side of things. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of real big problems, and I don't want to change the channel and take away from the focus on these failures of the NDP. So over time, we will be introducing more and more of our policies. We're going to have a very, very aggressive policy, particularly on affordability, making sure that people can build that future in British Columbia, on housing, on that side of things, and on healthcare as well. I mean, obviously, healthcare is huge with the doctor shortage, but our system is collapsing. There's only one jurisdiction in the world that even comes close to following the model that we use in Canada, and that's North Korea.
Oh.
So I look at it, I think, okay, I think it's time for taking a serious, honest look at how healthcare is done and look at different models and how are they other jurisdictions doing it that can achieve such better results than we have. And let's look at using it. Why wouldn't we? We need to be able to make sure that patients are at the center of our healthcare system. And you've got a government today that is literally in court arguing essentially that the system is more important than patient suffering.
Oh, now you have all the cards in your pocket probably, and you will show that in the next few months before we cast our vote in October. But you don't have the riding association as all the other major parties to work for you as the foot soldier. How can people know more about your party, and if they want to support you, how can they do it?
So we actually have a tremendous membership base that is growing every day. A year ago, actually just over a year ago when I joined this party, there's about 850 members. We're now somewhere between 8,500 and 9,000 members in this province. It's really been a grassroots movement of people coming together, and people can find us at conservativebc.ca. That's conservativebc.ca. They can go, they can sign up, or they can just ask to receive emails. We send out information, of course. Of course, we're looking for donations and that side of stuff too. And this. But when we think about candidates come forward, think about this. We actually had one riding on Vancouver Island where 19 people have put their name forward to run.
Wow.
19 people on Vancouver Island.
In one riding.
In one riding. And so we've got lots of nomination races that are going on. We've got lots of processes going on. But if people want to learn more about us and get us engaged, go to conservativebc.ca, sign up. We'll make sure we get information. We'll get you plugged into the various campaigns. Our candidates are building their teams out now. They're out door knocking. We've got one candidate who's already knocked on 4,000 doors in their riding.
Wow, it's not easy. 4,000 doors.
Not easy to do. And every day they're out knocking on doors. They're connecting with people. They're building up their support base. That's the kind of dedication we have from our candidates that want to bring change to the people for British Columbia.
So a lot of people, they put their life on hold because they want to work for British Columbian. They want to have a better BC for themselves, for the next generation, and in general. They're not happy with what's happening right now, just like Mr. Rustad. He put his business aside because he thinks he can do something for BC. So thank you very much for dedicating your life for this movement.
Well, thank you very much, and I have to tell you, I would never be doing this if it wasn't for my wife. I'm serious.
Yes.
She has been so supportive of me throughout everything I've done. And I asked her before doing this, I said, you know what this means? I'm going to be on the road. I'm going to be fighting in every corner of this province for every vote that we can get. I'm going to be home maybe one day a week, and that's it. And if we get elected and we form government, we have the honor of forming government, it's not going to change much. I said, I won't do this unless you want me to do this. And she said, you have to do this. We need to do this for British Columbia. We need to make the sacrifice. So I said, okay, I will do that. And I thanked her very much, and we've been on this path ever since.
It's so good. You're setting an example of all those people thinking of running for politics. Get the support of your partner, your family member, because you have to make a lot of sacrifice, and they have to make a lot of sacrifice as well. So thank you for coming to the program and share your heart with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I look forward to chatting again.